All right, welcome everybody back to Unquestionable with Calvin Smith. I am joined by another special guest today. I am joined by Manpreet Bawa or Manpreet Singh. We're going to call him a little bit of both, I guess, whatever one he prefers. But Manpreet is the host of the It's On with Manpreet Bawa YouTube channel, which I actually just came across his YouTube channel last night. I watched a couple of your videos and super insightful stuff. And so I knew that this was going to be a really interesting conversation. And I'm really happy to have you on. So welcome, Manpreet.
Thank you, Calvin, and I'm excited because I've never talked about religion with somebody. I mean, I talk spirituality a lot, but nobody has ever questioned about knowing about Sikhi, which is interesting for me because I don't have a very um, religious background. Even though I follow the faith,
Mhm.
I've kind of decided what to do and what not to do. Like if it aligned with what my general thought is, then I followed it. I'm not a go to buy books person, so I wanna also call out that what I express are my opinions, my perspectives, not necessarily the truth. So do your own research if you really want to lean into it. You find something, anybody listening finds something interesting, do their research. My words may not be entirely true.
Yes, exactly. I agree. Yeah. So same thing with me. I'm atheist, but I don't speak for all atheists out there. Everyone has
Yeah.
their own ideas and beliefs. But yeah, I'm here to just speak on my part. But yes, I'm glad you made that clarification. But I guess before we get too much further, tell me a little bit about your YouTube channel. What kind of stuff do you like to do over there?
So on my YouTube channel, it started with I wanted to talk about mindset. That was one of the things fascinated, and the reason it fascinated me was because I excelled or I did things well in my life where if you went by books, I wasn't supposed to. I did not do an engineering degree yet. I was in IT profession. I got to do many things where even engineers were not able to get into. I got into those opportunities. Um, I was into sales. I was selling insurance. I was doing so. A lot of these things happened because I somebody handed me book Think and Grow Rich. So I started learning the mindset side of the things, and I knew the value. I understood that there was a value of me grabbing on those teachings from people, and that shifted my perspectives and made me um, skilled in the things that I was able to do. So I started with the mindset in the initial, but I also always had this leaning on the spiritual side of things. So I wanted to balance, like bring in mindset and or entrepreneurship and spirituality and combine. That's where it started. But
Wonderful.
but over the time, I just felt like entrepreneurship talks were everybody doing it, and I could not bring anything from my own experience, my own life learnings to it.
Mhm.
Most of it was just what I was bringing in from other guests and all that. So I left entrepreneurship, and now I lean into more spiritual wisdom, mindfulness. It could be quotes from the some ascended masters, or it could be something that I just come across going in a walks, having a conversation like this. So I just share what I am learning through my journey now. And again, it's again my opinions, but
Yeah.
I tend to apply it on myself and then, put it out there that this is what I did and it worked.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like a lot of growth with your YouTube channel, and I encourage everyone to go check out Manpreet's YouTube channel. I'll have everything linked in the description of the podcast, so you can go click on that and go check out his content. Give him a subscribe, like a couple of his videos, leave a couple comments on what you think of it. But yeah, Manpreet, the main reason why I wanted to have you on today is I wanted to talk a little bit about Sikhism, and we talked for a couple seconds before we started recording because you're a practicing Sikh, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So I guess how long have you been practicing Sikhism? Have you always been
Always been. I
in the
grew
faith?
up into the family of Sikh.
Wonderful.
It's interesting, there was time when you had to like sort of baptized, similar to baptized, like you wanted to get on that path,
Okay.
and then you became. But then, over the years or um, generations, it has become like you. If you've gone into a Sikh family, you're a Sikh. If you've grown into a Hindu family, you're a Hindu or a
Mhm.
Christian, like that.
Right, right, right.
So um, I know a lot, having lived outside India. I know um, the world where uh, actually children, as they grow up, they decide which religion they want to go into. It wasn't common. It's becoming sort of a little normal in India, but when I was growing up, you just followed the religion your parents followed, or the
Yes.
family you were born into. When my grandfather was born, this is how we became Sikh. There used to be a tradition in Indian cultures where the families, Hindu families, one son would go become Hindu, the other one becomes Sikh, and
Mm.
did everybody, they chose how they did, but it was very natural for having both religions in one single family. So my grandfather became Sikh, and then my father followed to be Sikh, and I followed to be Sikh. So
I
that's
gotcha.
how. So I've been Sikh. In short, way of coming is that I've been Sikh all my life, but um,
Okay.
actually, if you were the word Sikh actually means seeker. So if you're seeking something, the truth, you're on that journey. You are a Sikh. You don't really necessarily have to be following the religion. Um, the Sikh means anybody who's seeking the truth, trying to find know themselves. So I know it's become a lot of like organized religion.
Hmm.
It has taken that way and form now, but
Yeah.
it
And
wasn't the way it started. It was more like you could be practicing Hindu, Muslim, but you could use this principle if you're on the journey of seeking the inner wisdom,
I
so to
gotcha.
speak.
And that's one thing that I kind of gravitated towards Sikhism is since I've started kind of looking into it when we first started talking that we were going to schedule this interview.
Mm,
I looked into Sikhism and it seems like it's a pretty inclusive religion. I mean,
yeah,
it seems as far as like women's rights goes, and I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. How I guess in the Sikh community, how are women treated in those regards?
yeah. So I'll go a step back how it started, because that is the
Yeah,
foundation,
of course.
and is it followed all across? No, but how it started was, it was a guy named Guru Nanak. We call our um, teachers, or we don't have sort of gods to speak, but we have
Mhm.
gurus or teachers who form that foundation, and the Guru Nanak was the very first one of it. So you can call him as a realized being. He came, and he, you know, people can say he got enlightened, people can say, he already knew whatever it was. Nobody can tell, it's all perspective. But what he did was he realized that there were things that were happening around him that didn't align to his soul. He questioned them. So he started as a young boy, he started questioning, like, why is this way, why not this? For example, he was born into a Hindu family, and there was a tradition of, they, as a boy in the family, you would wear a thread across your body,
Mhm.
which was a practice. And but that was only done by boys, not the women. So women were not given that right. And he questioned, like, why is my mother not wearing that? And he said, if my mother cannot wear it, I am not going to wear it. So he started
Yeah, yeah.
questioning, challenging, and standing up against the things that he felt in himself were not right. Like, he started to bring equality right from the very young age, and um, and the very first lesson he gave when he is told to be enlightened, and the very first word he spoke was one. Said everything around is one, and he's specified with the digit one, like it starts his um, his written knowledge is just by one. Like he starts by one, saying that everything that is happening around us,
Mhm.
it's one. So he took away this notion of what is God, because he said everything is one. Like what in his language, if somebody is asked what is God, he's like, what is not God? Tell me. Like he
Mm.
didn't label it, but he said everything is just one. That life energy that runs through everybody, everything that we can touch, see, smell, that is one. So in that aspect, everything becomes inclusive. Women, different religions, different mindset, atheism, Buddhism, Hinduism, everything
Gotcha.
is all one. He said behind everything is just one, and that's how you know he started that tradition. So if you wanna follow Sikhism, or if you wanna learn to be a Sikh, you wanna learn how to start seeing one. And the way you can see one is
Okay.
when you stop seeing others. Like you have to give up othering, and that othering is women's. That othering is, in today's world, bisexual, gays, LGBTQ, whatever way,
Right.
form, shape you would be othering. That is taking you away from one. So in his terms, in his words, it's all one. Women are one.
Okay.
In fact, uh, he goes on to say um, in his writings that we are all feminine. We are, we have the losing the word of the male opposite of feminine. What is it called? Uh,
Masculine?
Masculine. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
we have masculine and feminine, but if we really think there is some God out there, then in his poetic language, it's we are all bride of that one.
Okay. So you
So
don't necessarily believe in like a god deity, I guess you could
no,
say? Okay.
no. So what he taught was like, and this is very prevalent through his written. So where a little bit of Sikhi differs or had maybe the more advantage was whatever was written, whatever was his teachings was all compiled through his lifetime. Like it was written, it wasn't like somebody said that he went away and this book somebody's writing what he would have taught. It was written as he was journeying through his life, and in that he uh, called and he used the languages. He traveled a lot. He traveled all across India. He traveled to
Mhm.
Afghanistan. He traveled to Persia. And if you can see from the map, they are further away from, India. He traveled by foot in those days, like 500 years ago. He traveled by foot, by sea.
Right.
And what he did was not only he used the language where he was. So if he was in Persia, he was speaking Persian, he was writing Persian, he was using the labels for the gods as what the common people used at the times, but he was always bringing them to the one. He would always say that you may call it Allah, maybe Jesus was there, or whatever you may call Allah, you may call it Ram, but this is all one. So he always, uh,
Okay.
what fascinates me is that he started his writings with one, and then he spent entire text explaining the one and how to get to the one. Like
Right.
that's all Sikhi is about, like understanding that it's all one, and then how do you get to the one? And he uses different languages across the Indo-Pacific region, like that part of Southeast Asia, what we call, which are 8 different countries now. But he travels through those 8 different countries, and based on where he was writing. He was having active dialogues with the community leaders, whether you were Muslim, whether you were Christian. He was having dialogues to understand what they believed, and then if there was a way he could shift them a little bit higher or differently to see what actually the one is, he would do that.
Interesting. So do you consider uh is his name Guru Nanak? Is that his name?
Nanak,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, Nanak. So do you consider him like a prophet or
Teacher,
like a
teacher. So
teacher?
we call him guru. So guru is anybody who moves you from darkness towards light. So guru is made of two words, gu and ru. Gu is um, uh, darkness and ru is light. So he's moving anybody who can move you from darkness towards light. That is a guru. And so
Okay.
you can, in an English, more simplistic words, you can call him it as teacher.
Okay. So I'm just getting a little maybe you can help me clarify.
Mm.
You mentioned out of darkness and into light. I guess
Mhm.
can you describe what darkness may
Okay.
be in that
Yeah.
context?
So when he was growing up, the darkness that he was seeing was a lot of discrimination,
Mhm.
whether it was based on sex, whether it's based on your economic status, your financial status, or whether it was based on your, in India, back in India, caste, like where you, which family you were born in.
Right.
If you were born into rich family, you would have certain access, to the point where even within Hinduism, if you're born into a lower caste or lower family financial economic status, you were not allowed to listen to what was being said in the temples. You were not allowed
Okay.
inside the temples. And if you by mistake heard those messages, they would put wax in your ears. They will burn your ears, and they were
Mm,
so 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 that was the darkness he was
I
bringing
gotcha.
people right. Or there were, um, let's say, people were, they were practicing like, I'll give you an example. He was on a by a riverbed, which is Ganga. It's a famous river in India, and there were people worshiping, and they were worshiping sun, and so
Mm,
and they were watering in aid to worship sun. They were looking towards sun, and they were, just like pouring water into the sea with the mug, but in a way to that you are worshiping sun. This is how you're giving. So Guru Nanak saw that, and he realized that people are getting lost in the act, and what he started doing was he took the mug filled with water, and he started dropping water the opposite side, and people saw is like, what are you doing? Sun is
right.
this way. And he's like, I'm not watering sun, I'm watering my fields in Punjab, which were like hundreds of miles away. And they started
Yeah.
like, how can you reach there? It's like, if you can reach sun there, why cannot my water reach there? So he used to work with those misconceptions, and that people were lost in this, just the act of getting to the god, to actually pointing them, maybe what you're doing is useless. Maybe
Right.
there are things like where people were, another example where a lot of people in that time, yogis, would give up your lifestyles and go live in caves, mountains, to get to the god. And what Guru Nanak taught was that you can get to that one by making sure what you do with all your love. Like, you put all your energy and focus into that, and you can get to one. Because once you get lost, what is his philosophy, or what is his teaching? That you have to become one.
Mhm.
You become one when you forget about yourself. If you're so lost in the act of doing what you're doing, you've forgotten yourself, and you're one with that act itself. That act became one. And so he taught about, you could become one doing what you are supposed to do. It could be farming, it could be, jewelry, whatever is your craft. You make
Yeah.
sure you do with such honesty, such presence of mind, that your act becomes the one.
Yeah.
And that was his message.
What it sounds like is essentially what I'm kind of getting from it is the message of Guru is that this is essentially the one life that we're getting
Mm,
and make the best out of it. Do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
and put your all into what makes you happy. And that's something that I can get behind. That's something that I've not really heard a lot of, especially organized religions, talk about. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot of the doctrine says this, so you have to follow the doctrine, which
Yeah.
kind of leads me into my next question: is there a doctrine in which you follow?
So if you go to organized religion within even Sikh, you will say people would say that you have to do certain things certain way. But when I sit down and I ever question things like these the famous things like oh, whether one should eat meat or not, whether you should wear turban or not, keep so whether this is inclusive or not inclusive, or that kind of thing. I always sit down and try to contemplate what would Guru Nanak say or do, knowing what I knew from the stories he was growing. He wouldn't he's saying all his teachings is about how to get to one, but he's not saying you know you
This is
just
the definitive way
yeah,
to do
this
it.
is the
Right,
way.
right.
You don't restrict, you don't give up your choices. You have the choice, you can decide. uh, but his teaching, all his teachings are about forgetting yourself and remembering the one.
Hmm.
Making he goes about talks a lot about love. So what he his initial teaching is, he defines starts with defining that characteristics of one, which is fearless, is full of love, is nameless, you cannot name it. So he describes 10 uh, different characteristics of that one, and then he spends the rest of the thing explaining how to get and in love, like how do you devote yourself
Hmm.
uh, and become love. He starts with something like, if you really want to play this game, you need to bring your head on your palm, like you need to cut your head in a way that you need to put your ego out and
Hmm.
come play this game with love, because it's all by love. You cannot get there with ego. You need to be in so much love that you start seeing everything you know perfect or imperfect. Like we call this unorganized religion, right?
Right.
Or organized religion, there are things that the boundaries that they create. And if we look at uh, organized religion, and you say like, how can that be part of that perfect oneness?
Yeah.
And the answer is that it's part of that perfect oneness in a way that even though it looks imperfect, your desire to improve makes it perfect. Like it's there are things that are not wrong, that you see are not aligned, but you see that and then you decide not to follow. That's what it
Right,
makes
right.
perfect. But it's all inclusive. Eh, there's nothing in this world that's happening that is not part of that one. Like
I
all the
gotcha.
wrongdoings, right doings is just labels, is but we cannot understand that as part of one, because we're operating from that ego, or we are still detached
Yeah,
from oneness.
I gotcha.
But
Yeah. So something else that has kind of come up when I was doing a little bit of research on, the faith and everything.
mm,
I came across a couple things that I just wanted to ask you about, that I
yeah,
wasn't 100% sure if they were true or what is going on. But
mm,
I've heard some people talk about how typically Sikhs will carry around swords.
yeah,
Is that typical practice? Like, I mean, do you walk around with
yeah.
a sword, or I mean,
So what happened was, um, when Guru Nanak, what he taught was that um, you try all. He taught to fight against oppression. He said you need to, not only you need to protect yourself, you need to protect others. Anything you call others, that's only way you can come to the one, that you treat everybody else also as like you are. And if you're seeing somebody getting oppressed and you see that and you don't do anything, then you are also part of that oppression. You are, you know so he taught becoming as a warriors, because there was, in back in those days, there were Mughals were trying to
mhm,
overrule India. They were ruling and they were converting people into Islam. So they tried all the means. They said, we'll try all our means. We'll try it by being nice, by speaking nicely, getting in arguments, whatever ways. But when everything ends, then we'll pick up the sword. Don't think that we cannot pick the swords,
I
but we'll
gotcha.
pick up the sword as our last mechanism. So they were trained warriors also. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who was our 10th guru, was the last guru. By the time it came to him, 10 gurus later, he created the whole army warriors. So these were called like spiritual warriors, so saint warriors. So you had your foundation was laid into the spirituality, but you
Mhm.
also knew the skills of fighting, wars. So but wars, for a warrior, the war is the last place. You are not,
Right.
for
It's like
fighter
last
it is
resort.
your DNA that you need to fight. But for a warrior, it is the last resort. You're you're avoiding the war, you're going, but when you are left with no other place, you would go. So in that tradition, we were taught to have both, which is called bana and bani. Bani is like your spiritual aspect, your wisdom, and then your bana is your dress, which is your code of conduct that outwardly shows who you are, so that people can see you. They wanted, like, the reason the turban exists was he wanted to create an image that people see from far away. They can tell that this guy is Sikh. He can fight. He is spiritually aligned, but he can also fight. He will stand
Mhm.
against. And in their times, they fought battles. Like from the third guru onwards, there was always battles. Sikhs were fighting the oppression against the ruling parties or the ruling governments of the time, who were trying to oppress in different ways. So
Okay.
they carry sword. If you, I don't want to use the term baptized, but actually, in a way, if you say that I've now given myself to Guru, that I'm going to follow, then you should be wearing. I don't wear the sword, but you should be wearing the sword, and then you follow a certain lifestyle, so to speak. So,
Okay. So if I decided to, or if I don't know, fell into the Sikh faith and I wanted to consider myself Sikh, do I have to wear a turban? Like, is that and like, do I have to dress a certain way, or is it like, okay, if I'm just as I am and I say I'm Sikh and I believe in those things that Guru said, I'm just not dressing in that
yeah.
way. Is that still okay? Or
So you will get different answers from different people on this one, because this is so debatable. This goes to whether you're following the doctrine or not. My understanding is no, you don't. It's more about values. Are you aligned your values? But there will come a time when I've seen people who start like this, they actually recognize the significance of wearing a turban, or
Mhm.
because it's more of a reminder to yourself the values you stand for. And then when you are internally aligned to those values, then maybe you will wear, maybe you don't. Like I'll give you example. My brother, he does not wear, he's cut his hair, he doesn't do it.
Okay.
Does he go to Sikh temples? He does. So I have had people in family, and if you ask somebody in organized religion, they would say they are not Sikh. But then again, who
Right.
is Sikh? Like if you're othering, the whole principle of Sikhism starts with everything is one. If you start
Yeah.
othering, then you're all of a sudden lost that
Yeah.
root. So um, I believe you can have the Sikh. This is what Guru Nanak believed in. He never said anybody to become Sikh. He
Okay.
never told that you need to be. In fact, a lot of writings that are part of Guru Granth Sahib, which is where the recorded teachings of all these gurus are. There are Muslim prophets in there, Muslim poets in there. There are Hindus there. There are Christians there. There are all gurus, and a lot of these gurus came. Like Guru Nanak was born into Hindu family, so it's not about becoming Sikh. It's about following those principles,
Yeah.
recognizing the one, and you know, it's about forming your own relationship with that one, that life energy that there is a certain love and poetry to it. Like is invoked inwardly. And when you understand that inwardly, the outward expression really doesn't matter. If it happens, it happens. If it
Yeah.
doesn't happen, it doesn't
Yeah, I
matter.
agree because I bring that up because just kind of would seem like I don't know if you're familiar with the no true Scotsman fallacy. Like someone can, if I went into a Sikh temple and said I was a Sikh and I'm being genuine, I'm wanting to practice, and someone said you're not doing it right or you're not
Mm.
dressed this way, therefore you're not a Sikh. That's a no true Scotsman fallacy. You're telling me that I don't believe in this thing when I do. I just am not
Yeah.
doing it in the way you want me to. So I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
that can
great.
happen. If you go to temple, somebody may tell you that because, again, a lot of what is the foundation teachings of Guru Nanak, they have lost in this organization of their religion. It
Right.
wasn't always the case. He traveled around the world. He had these dialogues, and he's never fighting against these people. He's always questioning. He's saying, why? Explain me. He's trying to understand. And then he's bringing his own perspective. Okay, if you say this way, maybe this is the way I see. There's a famous story that Guru Nanak goes to Mecca, which is, the holy place for Muslim. That's the holiest place.
Right.
And you're not, if you're not Muslim, you're not allowed inside the Mecca. So
Yes.
he goes there to have dialogue with the uh, people who are sort of running the show inside the Mecca, but he's not allowed. So he's sitting outside, laying outside, and somebody walks by and says, "Hey, why are your feet pointing towards the Mecca? You should, you're pointing towards our God. You move your feet to other direction." He goes, "Okay, fine. Put my feet in the direction where there is no God."
Right.
Right. So then the fable goes that the guy tries to move the feet, but whichever direction he moves the feet, the Mecca moves that side. And he shows to the point. I mean, he's established these points with the commentary. He's not trying to bring people down. He's trying to show them a different perspective by
Yeah.
questioning and really having a open dialogue, and really out of curiosity with love. Like he you I read a lot of what he has written. When you read, it's full of so much love. Like his answer is, that he says in one of the famous lines, he says that only those who have loved have found the God. Like you cannot get to God without love. If you have any form of hate or otheringness in you, you're not going to get there.
Hmm.
And that is such a profound thing. Like it stops you when you are having an argument with somebody. It's like, if you really lean into the wisdom, it makes you, if I am having a tough time dealing with somebody, which I had in recent times with, uh, we were doing a building renovation project which was delayed by 4 months, and I was, paying rent at a property, I was paying mortgage, and I was running around my school. So I had a lot of um, resentment towards the building contractor. And the only way I was able to come peace was like trying to find the love and seeing,
Right.
okay, he's doing best, or maybe he's doing what he needs to do. Because the other opposite of which was othering him or saying, okay, he's, taking advantage of me, it was just making me more miserable.
Yeah.
So, it's beautiful. You don't need to wear any form of, at certain level, you don't need to wear anything. You can follow the principles and get to
Yeah.
it. It's,
That's wonderful.
and people do it in different ways.
Yeah.
There's no
All
one
right.
way
Yeah. So
either.
that makes a lot of sense here. Another thing that I wanted to ask you
Mm.
is when I noticed your last name when we first started talking, and on Facebook it was Singh,
Yeah.
and it caught my eye because I was like, I've seen that last name a lot. So I did a
Yeah.
little bit of research and looking into it, and it seems like a lot of practicing Sikhs have either the last name Singh or Kaur or Kar. I'm not sure how to
Mm.
pronounce that. Why is that? Is there something behind that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good question. So what? when Guru Nanak was there, he grew up in a lot of discrimination in caste systems, that you were different castes and there were 7, 8 layers. You could be lowest low and highest high.
Hmm.
When they he formed this religion, or this foundation principles, he said you'll always be saints. Like there is no differentiator. So he created Singh, which means warriors or a lion, and that was supposed to be the only last name you would be known by, so that people cannot identify what your
I
caste
got
is,
you.
becomes
Again,
one
with
in a
the
way.
all of us being one thing. I
One.
gotcha.
So he bringing that principle, but it's funny because people started adding their last name after the Singh or Kaur.
Ah,
So, so,
defeats
so,
purpose.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of our last name, because you know, uh, became whatever the last names were, they added. So I have last name, but my son doesn't have a last. My son's last name
Mm,
is Singh. So because I recognize, I learned I couldn't change it for me, or it didn't have enough time. I
I
didn't want to
gotcha.
go through the pain of all the legal process.
Right.
But for my son, he's just saying, and I've just left it to that. And people ask me, I don't know. I always now say it's just saying I don't know what my caste is, and if really somebody wants to get in argument and try to find, I jokingly tell them, I belong to same caste like Guru Nanak is, so go find that.
Yeah.
Which is humanity, yeah. But that it was purposely done so that you come under there, you start to form a shape, recognize, and in the times where they were constantly in war, they wanted to have that identity. Like, I, people get so much enthusiasm and inspiration from their identity, right? It's a thing. It's
Hmm.
I'm American. If something goes America, I will fight. Like I'll stand. So that that embodiment of identity, where you stand against oppression because you're a Singh, is where it comes from.
Wonderful. Yeah, from this conversation, I've learned a lot about Sikhism. I still have a lot to learn. I'm gonna pick
Mm.
up the doctrine that we've kind of talked about a little bit. I want to pick that up and take a look at that too. And
Mm.
um yeah, I think that I've really learned a lot, and a couple misconceptions that I've had about Sikhism you've kind of cleared up. And I hope that some of the audience members too kind of picked up on some of those misconceptions that I think we did a good job kind of clearing up and talking about. Because people
Mm.
see, I have seen Sikhs carrying around swords, and that's intimidating. To be honest, you look at a guy
Yeah.
carrying around a sword, and you're going to go, "Holy crap, he's got a big sword!" But
Yeah. Yeah.
after you've kind of explained it, I mean, not to say it still doesn't intimidate
It
me a little bit,
is.
but I guess it's
Yeah.
kind of the point is what you're saying, is to say, hey, don't f with me. Um,
Yeah.
so I understand it. It's no different than, I guess, open carry here in the U.S. You can carry around a gun. Why can't you carry around a
Mm.
sword?
Mm.
So I understand that. And I love the whole message being inclusivity and fighting oppression, because that's, as an atheist, a non-believer, that's what I do. I fight for, fighting against oppression and
Mm.
equality, just from a non-belief standpoint. So I mean, I think it's interesting that we're on the same page, all nearly to a T, but there's just very slight differences in between us, and I think it's very interesting. So I have a lot of work to do, looking into this, and maybe I can have you on again sometime, and we can dive a little bit more into some aspects.
Yeah.
Maybe after I read the doctrine, and maybe we can have some sort of discussion on that. Or
Yeah.
yeah, but anyways, Manpreet, I had a really great discussion with you. I learned a lot. My audience learned a lot. I know it, and I appreciate you for coming on a lot. We're gonna kind of wrap up the interview here. But before we go, I would like, if you have any links, your YouTube channel, any websites, anything that you would like to plug, you're more than welcome to take a couple seconds and plug anything that you'd like.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. On my YouTube channel, like you mentioned, will be in notes. That's the place to see what I do. There will be a LinkedIn. I will pass you my LinkedIn if people want to connect. That's where I'm active. People can connect and chat and have a word. And the I guess the only thing I would want to say is that uh, we all have, we've been given this um, compass, the true north within ourselves. Like, it doesn't matter what Manpreet says, what Calvin says. You come across something and you close your eyes. If it doesn't align with your heart, it's probably not true. You don't need to follow. Do your own homework. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's why we are so divisive. The very first principle, I think, if it's dividing us, it cannot be. If you really believe in something as God, or something as connecting us as one, if it's dividing any message, that to me is further away from the truth. And so I use that as my true north. It could be something different for you, but we are all, when we operate from our heart, our mind can deceive us into different intellectual theories, but you close your eyes, you operate from your heart, you know where the truth is. And I think if more and more people align to that truth, we'll have a beautiful world to live in.
Wonderful. Yeah, I totally agree with almost everything that you just said. But anyways, Manpreet, I appreciate you for coming on. I hope to speak to you again soon. And again,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Bye.